one of the things that we noticed when we were in there is we kept wanting to look out the window, but we couldn't look out the window because there were TV sets on the wall. So what we did is we used the motion in the iPad so that you can see here Nadine is moving the iPad, and as she's moving it, we're panning the city. So this is Paris, and for each city there's different drinks for that city, and you can see there's also the Disney pixie dust, and for there if you touch the pixie dust, you'll get some neat information about Disney in that particular city. It really helps bring the concept to life. And people really kind of get the sense that they're going from London to Paris and so forth. And it's really kind of been a really popular way. So this doesn't use augmented or virtual reality, but you are getting a virtual experience that you're moving between cities. Another example, we worked with Shula's Steakhouse. And I don't know, Rafael used to work at Shula's.
Yeah, used to work over at Shula's. And originally they had, in this location, about 4 to 5 carts that you have to push in front of the guests to do a presentation. So now with the new virtual cart that Nadine and the team at Shula have put together, they only need a one cart, and the rest of the presentation will come right into the iPad.
So this was a way for them to kind of modernize their brand. And also, what's neat about the physical cart is if you go to Shula's the first time, it's a very neat presentation to wheel that cart up and see the beef and so forth. But after you've gone to Shula's several times, you don't necessarily always need that cart coming. And if they have 3 or 4 carts, there was a lot of food costs and labor costs to do that. So by having the virtual steak cart on the iPad, they've been able to save labor dollars, food dollars, and also I think it's a nicer experience for the guests too, because it isn't all raw meat. They're actually also able to show how the meat is prepared. It's more appetizing, and it really kind of gets the guest in the mood to kind of choose their steak. You think about if this says, Kansas City strip, 28 ounce, $48, $52. As opposed to being able to see the picture of it, it just really heightens the guest experience. So those are some examples of using mobile technology without augmented or virtual reality. We're actually, as this session progresses, we're going to show actually how you can combine the virtual experience with augmented and virtual reality to get a multiplying effect. The next thing we wanted to show is we reached out to our friends at Moet Hennessy. It was actually Rafael who showed me this first, and they're using augmented reality to do a really neat dining experience in France. So they were able to provide us with an HD video of that. There was one caveat: we had to root for France in the World Cup today. So fortunately, I think France won. So they'll be happy at Moet Hennessy this evening. And Rafael, you were the first one that actually brought this to our attention. Why don't you talk about what intrigued you about this?
But I think that the most impressive part of having the iPad, it's the visual. A lot of people, when they go to the restaurant and you have a paper menu, it's just words. But once you include a description and a visual graphic on it, the people get more inspired for the items that are actually on that particular menu. In this particular case with Moet Hennessy and what they're doing, they're actually bringing that interaction and makes it more vivid at the dining table. And you will see in just a few minutes how that old show, if you will, because it is a show, it just comes to life, that it makes you increase the experience, the feeling that experience by visual graphics. It will be, and the reason that I actually got into it is because once we start with the iPads, we start noticing a lot of increments in not only in guests coming to the restaurant, but also the word to mouth that is happening. And obviously all that increase on your revenues. Now, every time that you have that kind of technology in front of you, they put you on a thought in your brain. It's like, okay, what else I can do with this tool? And this is something that I looking in researching and talking with some of the distributors have come out and said, oh my God, I need to get this. I need to get this. And so I talked to with Jack and Nadine about the new show that Moet Hennessy is putting on the table. and you will be mesmerized.
Before we move into the next part, I kind of promised some financial information from Rafael, so why don't I turn it over to him to maybe share, business-wise, what this has done.
But we had the iPads, the beginning of 2000, the middle of the 2014, and by the date, on the fine dining portion of the business, has brought up 20% increase in revenue. That is a exponential amount of money on an operation on a fine dining. So we're talking about close to from $5 million on inception of 2014 to $6 million. And that is because we have this technology available to our guests. It's an experience. And you're bringing up that experience to a complete different level. So the revenues are there. And this operation or having these tools into your restaurant is actually will increase that revenue. So that initial investment that you're going to put in there that you might think that it's expensive is actually paid off and tenfold. We also have a lobby bar at the hotel, which has increased the revenue since we put the iPads on the floor, 33%. Now, when you talk about the lobby bar over at the Waldorf in Orlando, it's pretty massive. And believe it or not, being a lobby bar, but we also have some food that we serve in there, the transition goes at the beginning of the year from 60% alcohol to 40% and food. But then on the summer times, when you have that transition of families versus business, it changes around. So you will get a 60% increase versus, on food versus a 40% in alcohol. But all is the visualization. We have a complete digital menu that once you open the menu, you click on the menu and the menu item itself, and it will pop a beautiful picture of the item. So it gives you not only you educate your guests because you have your cocktail list in there, you have your wine list in there, which projects the picture of the item, but you also have your staff that will be helping the guest itself to go through a transition, which it will generate an exponential amount of money. It is a fantastic tool.
Well, what I found interesting is the more casual outlet actually had the larger increase in sales. So it increased in the fine dining outlet, but the more casual actually increased even more.
That's correct.
Okay, thanks for sharing that. I know that's not always something people are willing to do, and I appreciate that you would share that with the audience. I think it takes it well beyond just saying good things, but to get some hard numbers. The next part of this is when we start to combine these things and we say, okay, what happens if we have a virtual experience like a virtual wine locker and we combined it with virtual reality? I just kind of like to refer to the power of and. When you have one really good idea and another really good idea and you put both of them together, it has more of an impact than if you have those same good ideas separately. And so in this situation, what we're going to do is actually show there's several customers are going to these virtual wine lockers. And the reason for that is physical wine lockers are expensive to build. They have limits to them. Some Capital Grilles are on a 5 to 7 year waiting list for a physical wine locker. So this is revenue that can't be captured with physical wine lockers, but if it's on a mobile device and up in the cloud, you can have as many wine lockers as you would like. And in fact, we'll go explore Brandon's wine locker. What location is this? So this is the Orlando Capital Grille. And the locker owners can actually choose to make their lockers private or public, and so he's chosen to make his public. What that allows people to do if they want is they can actually follow his locker, almost like Twitter, and if he gives them permission, they can see which wines he's drinking, they can have conversations about the wines, did he like it, did he not like it. You can also do gifting out of here, where you can actually gift a bottle of wine from your locker to a business associate or family member. And they've seen a very, very large impact by taking their physical lockers virtual. And I think Bull & Bear is planning to do the same thing as well.
That is correct.
We have several customers looking at this because you can go from having, say, 20 or 30 wine lockers to having 100 wine lockers. And what they'll do is they'll take part of their wine cellar and just kind of rope it off and say, okay, these are the different people's wines, and then they can capture all that extra revenue. One of the things that happens here is they do what's called a stock your locker party, people who have wine lockers, and they'll have an afternoon event. People will come in and be able to taste wine to decide which allocated wines they want to add. One of the things you heard George Miliotes in the opening video say, you can't always fly to Napa Valley, but the next best thing is a virtual tour. What we're going to show here next is now, let's say that you're at one of these stock your locker parties, or just at a wine tasting, and you decide that you want to maybe go visit the vineyard. You want to see the soil. You want to kind of look at the vines. And a lot of wine tastings, people would do this. Now, again, this could be for a chocolate tasting, a beer tasting, a steak tasting. You could do this for any food and beverage. But what's going to happen now is we're in San Antonio, but Faith is actually going to go to Napa Valley. So come on up, Faith, and she's going to actually virtually right now visit the Honig Vineyard. If you want to have this experience, our booth is 849. You can stop over and you can put these on. There is audio that we weren't able to play here, but this is what she's seeing. So she can actually look down at the soil, up at the sky. It is just like being in the vineyard. And so think of yourself at a wine tasting here in San Antonio or Orlando, and you decide to really get interested in a wine, and the person leading the tasting says, hey, you know what? You should see the soil. It's really something. That's what's producing these grapes. Or if you're in a chocolate tasting, you should see the cacao, and all of a sudden you're in a rainforest somewhere. But being able to actually get more, you think of all the farm-to-table movement and stuff like this, but being able to go virtually somewhere to see the origins of the food really will increase the revenue opportunity for the restaurant. So I think, Rafael, you want to be one of the first to do one of these virtual tasting. I think, and the key is here, like I mentioned with George, about balancing hospitality. You can't just do technology for technology. You wouldn't want someone to be wearing those goggles all through a wine tasting, but to take 5 or 10 minutes and go there as part of the experience would be, I think, really effective. And I don't know if you want to talk to that at all.
Completely. And I think, once again, the visualization is everything. So the visual is everything. So if you get this as an introduction to a wine dinner or a wine tasting, perhaps, it gives that guest the experience that they actually do, transferring from, let's say, San Antonio all the way just for 5 minutes into the winery itself. They can take a look at the soils, the type of grapes, the type of weather that is in there that you can see. So it makes it much real, and the experience become much, much greater.
Great. So I think we're going to have time for questions after this next piece, and this will be our final part of talking about virtualization. Up until now, every single thing we've talked about is actually available to restaurants to use today. What we're going to talk about now is something that we think will be coming next year, and that's the ability to virtually gift food and beverage through augmented reality. And we have a few mock-up slides that we're going to share. But the idea here is, instead of an impersonal gift card that you would say, here's a gift card to the Bull and Bear, being able to say, well, here's a signature dish that Bull and Bear has, and I know that my friend would like this particular thing. In this case, it's a tomahawk steak and a bottle of red wine. So being able to have a personalized gift to somebody as opposed to a generic gift card, and being able to really heighten the brand of that restaurant. And again, this example is fine dining, but this could be a casual restaurant. It doesn't have to be fine dining. So why don't we go ahead, and so here's the first step is on their phone, being able to just go on there, say, hey, I want to give a gift to my friend and his wife for their anniversary, and going through and selecting which gifts he might want from a particular restaurant, and then going ahead and deciding, okay, well, now I want to pick the gift, and then I want to then say, what wrapping paper do I want to wrap it up in? I want to choose and you can see the gift there down at the bottom. And then he says, okay, I wrapped up my gift. So believe it or not, there's a bottle of red wine and a steak in that box. And then he's going to go ahead and send that gift to his friends. And so now they receive it. They get a message that they've just been given a gift. And they can actually take a look at the gift right on their own kitchen table. And they say, okay, we want to open the gift to see what they've sent me. And so again, on their kitchen table, they're seeing a steak, a bottle of red wine, and they're still sitting in their kitchen. But while they're in their kitchen, we want their kitchen to actually turn into Bull and Bear. And so without them, because we want to give them an excitement of what their gift is going to be like. So they're still in their kitchen, but the phone, if you're looking at the phone, it's showing that now they've moved from their kitchen into the Bull and Bear restaurant, and they're starting to anticipate what it's going to be like when they visit the restaurant. Think about how cool that gift is as opposed to a gift card. You're actually already kind of getting a chance to pre-experience it. And then from there, the restaurant kind of livens up, and it just really gets the anticipation going. We wanted to kind of show these. There's other steps to this that we'll be announcing later as we get closer to releasing this. But there's the step that what happens when they redeem it. So something incredible should happen between the phone and the iPad as they enter the restaurant, because it knows that they're there for their anniversary. And then how do you remember this gift, and how do you share it on social media? Those are the things that getting into early next year we'll start to release more information. But we think that this is, for restaurants, it's going to be a lot more fun to actually give your food and beverage than a plastic gift card. If you think about how much time we all take on our menu, our wine list, our beer list, and why couldn't someone share that as opposed to a plastic card? How could we really give the experience of our brand and of all the work we do on food and beverage? How could we share that as opposed to just here's $100? And so I think this is going to really be something that I think really can really transform and also invigorate restaurant gifting and food and beverage. And Rafael, I'll have you maybe make a comment on that too.
But I'm very excited about this, Jack, because it's something that we've been talking about it for a long time, having the issues of just not being that personable when it comes to gifting or giving a gift card from the restaurant itself, regardless of what kind of restaurant it is. I think it's a great tool because the people will feel that personalization. And not only that, how many people have a phone? Everybody has a phone. Everybody utilizes social media. So you have this at your fingertips that you can go in and say, you know what? Oh, my friend, or pops up in one of your calendars and say, my friend Jack's birthday is today. Oh my God, what am I doing? Everybody is on a run constantly. So you're not gonna go over to the store, grab a $100 gift card and send it over to him or call the restaurant. So you just, on the fingertip, on your phone, just go to the application and just, hey, this is for you, Jack. And you send it over to him. When they open it up, it's already personalized with the favorite items in there. I think it will be magnificent. And there is so much that you can do with the utilization of having the iPads, the menus, the wine list, the virtual lockers, and it creates. And trust me when I tell you this, it will bring so much revenue that you don't know what to do with it. But I can help you with that.
Okay, thanks, Rafael. So I think one of the probably final points I wanted to make is we started Uptown Network 6 years ago, and we've been fortunate enough to work with Disney and Darden and Waldorf and a lot of really good brands. None of this was even being talked about even 2 years ago. We really just had the wine list, and then we thought it was kind of revolutionary when it went to a fully digital menu. But then all of a sudden, the virtual wine locker idea came, and then the virtual state card idea. There's probably 5 other virtual ideas not involving augmented or virtual reality that we're talking to some of these large brands with. And then all of a sudden, virtual and augmented reality started to say, well, that doesn't sound so crazy anymore. if you'd asked us a couple years, we'd say that doesn't really belong in restaurants. You don't want to go out to dinner and get augmented reality, or virtual reality. And then these virtual experiences kind of changed our thinking about that and started to say, well, wait a minute, maybe there are some things, but the hospitality has to come first, and the brand has to come first, and the food and beverage and service has to come first. But then how do you then take these technologies and create experiences that just blow people away, and also elevate your brand well above your competition, and position for the future? And I think when we were preparing for this session, Rafael made a comment. He said, a few years ago it was really rude. It was considered rude to be in a restaurant and be texting, and now people say to him, do you allow that in Bull and Bear? Can people to be in the restaurant. I actually ate dinner once in Bull and Bear, and there was a couple, they didn't say anything to each other. They were each on their phone all. I was kind of ashamed because it's such a nice restaurant. But society is really changing, and what used to be a few years ago considered very rude is now very common. And so maybe you can talk just a minute to that, because that was a good point that you brought up.
It is, and as you've seen it, you say, well, you have your establishment and they having dinner together, and maybe it's a date night, but both of them, they're on their phone, right? But get to realize, because you're going around touching tables and making sure that their experience is up to par, and you start realizing when you go to the tables, they actually in TripAdvisor, Open Table, sending pictures to a friend or family and telling them and sharing with them how amazing their time is. So for you, it's money, it's marketing money that is not coming out of your pocket. It's they're doing it right there virtually. So anything that you do or anything that you will do in your establishment is actually will create more revenue for you. But you have to be innovators and you have to keep up with the trend. If you don't, little by little, you're gonna be fading down or off the path. So having these tools and using this augmented reality and virtual reality, and now something that is coming out called mixed reality, when you have those two elements with the actual, it's being innovative and being ahead of your times.
That's great. Well, we're going to have some time for some questions. Also, I'd love someone to ask a question that isn't related to fine dining or wine, because so we can get specific on how this could help in other areas. Also, our booth is 849. It's right over that way. Feel free to come over and try on the goggles if you like, or talk to us about this after the Q&A. And also, I just really wanted to say thank you for Rafael for taking the trip from Orlando. I know he's got a restaurant to run, so thank you for coming. And
pleasure to be here.
Also, George Miliotes, Honig, Disney Cruise, Capitol Grille, Shula's, there's a Moet Hennessy. There was a lot of big brands that gave us permission to share things today. Yeah, Coca-Cola for a great introduction. Also, Nadine, Chrissy, and Faith, and the Texas Restaurant Association. They're putting on a really great show. So wanted to thank them, and hopefully we can open this up to Q&A.
Let me.
Thank you, Rafael. I have a kind of dual question. I'm in a more of a formal, informal type of restaurant. Two questions in one. If we switch from paper menu to a digital menu, I think the question that I have in my mind is having a table of 2 up to 4, one iPad make it, but if you have a 20 people party, do I have to have 20 iPads? And that's probably the thing that I'm thinking. How do you handle that? Because it's cost associated. I see the value, but I'm just going on numbers. Is how many iPads do I have to have? Oh, second question is, would you allow your clients in our restaurant? People ask all the time, can I change this for this? To the waiter. How do you handle that on a virtual menu?
Sure. Yeah, no, very good question. I'll do some of the business parts of that, but then Rafael for the steps of service. Does that sound okay? A couple things. One is there is leasing available, so the cost isn't as expensive as you might think up front. And then also the way to think about an iPad is a 3-year time horizon. So if you kind of add up all your printing over the course of 3 years, and then you compare that to the cost of the iPad, what we've normally found is it's less expensive to use the iPads over that time period. And also the other thing that we see a lot is vendor support, where either a food or a winery or a liquor distributor will help sponsor all or some of the cost of the iPad. So that we have several restaurants that haven't paid anything for the devices up front, but then they agree that they'll support that whoever's sponsoring that, they'll support their let's say it's an ice cream vendor, they'll make sure that they keep the ice cream on the iPad, and then sometimes it's a split. You say, okay, well, leasing took the upfront cost way down. now why don't you share half, I do half, and then we've had other customers that said, okay, I need to justify this as if I was going to pay 100%, and they go through the financial math, and we have people that can work with you to do that, and then they go get vendor support, and it's a double win, because they already justified it if they paid all of it, but then when they get some vendor support, it's just that much better. But the steps of service question you asked is a really good one too, and we have some best practices, but this is Mr. Best Practice right here, so I'm going to turn it over to him to answer that.
Thank you, Jack.
But I think that you have your menu, it's already built with your chef the one way it comes. So your pictures or your visualization on the menu itself, we're gonna come up as there is a steak that comes with baked potatoes and perhaps some vegetables. That is the menu, or that is the dish. Now that the guests decide that we wanna change one thing for another thing, it's up to the server itself, obviously talking with the chef, to allow them to do that. We do all the time, but the options that we have on the menu are already presetting. So the pictures that we have, that's what it is. Yes, you're gonna have a lot of people, especially nowadays, have allergies all over the place. We have people that are gluten-free, so, and you have a fried chicken. So, well, unfortunately, you cannot have the fried chicken, but we can do the substitution for you. But not necessarily you need to have it printed out how many options they can have with. Does that make sense?